Great. So my talk today, though, is on technical team resilience. So I'm a doctoral candidate in cybersecurity. What does that mean? Well, are there any doctors in the house? Any doctors in the house? Okay, so here's how it works. You take a bunch of classes, just like college, and then you take a bunch of tests and you write a bunch of papers. I'm done with all that. That's good. Yay. Then you spend about 5 months diving deep into all the research on your topic. I'm done with that. Yay. And you end up with hundreds, literally hundreds of different references about your topic. My case, team resilience. Then you find a gap in the knowledge. Then you do research on that topic. You publish, and then you're a doctor. Yay! Like Dr. Hunt over there. So anyway, so this is something that I have a bunch of knowledge, and I'd like to share it. So here's what we're going to do today. Here's today's route. So I'm going to answer 3 questions. Who am I? Why you should pay attention to research? And why is team resilience important? Then I'm going to talk about 6 different solutions, broad solutions that will help you improve your team resilience. Then I will give you some key takeaways. I think we promised things that you can use on Monday. You can go ahead and use them tomorrow if you want to. And then lastly, I'll leave you with a final thought. We will roll credits, and then we'll do some questions. Any questions before I begin? Great. Here's what we're going to do. You guys have questions? Just go ahead and raise your hand. I'll call on you when I have a natural break in my presentation, and I'll answer. If it's getting kind of close on time, I'll just ignore you. So we'll move right past that. So, who am I? Well, first and foremost, I've been lucky enough to spend about a decade organizing the Minnesota Developers Conference and working with the .NET User Group. And anyone remember the Norwegian Developers Conference that was here briefly? Yeah, I got to select content there too. Here's one of the things I got to do. I got to select speakers. And this is a wonderful task, and it's very difficult. I got to select speakers like Elsa and Will, and Kurt and some others. So that was really great. But the main thing I looked at was credibility. Did this person actually know what they were talking about? Because if you do like a code sample, etc., that's cool. That's going to work out. But does this person know what they're talking about? So I'm going to talk a little bit about, myself. Who am I? Both from a running and a professional standpoint. One, I have led technical teams for over a quarter century. Love saying that. And I've been running for about 13 of those years. What am I running from? Bad developers. Who is it said? What am I running from? I've led teams in companies that have gone public, and I've led teams in companies that have gone bankrupt. Star Tribune, anyone? That was fun. And I've worked in startups that sold, and it was yay moment. And I've worked in 125-year-old institutions. I've competed in running, swimming, cycling, triathlons, anywhere from 1 mile to 24 hours in lengths. But I've cut off at 24 hours, haven't gone any farther than that yet, in 49 states. And yes, the answer to your question is the 50th state is Hawaii, and I'm running in January, so that should be really fun. Recently, like over the last 3 years, I've run about 44 marathons or longer in those 3 years, and I've been working on my doctorate. The two pair really well together. You run a lot, and then you sit on your ass a lot. So doing the doctoral research, so the two pair really wonderfully together. Strongly recommend those two. So I have, including consulting, I've worked with well over 40 teams in very diverse situations and directly managed or managed people who manage people, 9 different teams. And I've run 63 marathons or longer, and if this sounds impressive, there are many people in this room who have run twice that. Some who have run twice that at 100 miles or longer. As my friend John often says, there's always someone further out the branch. So, cool. So why should you pay attention to research? In short, you need to persuade something with something. Maybe it's yourself, maybe it's your team, maybe your organization. The 5 classical types of research, and by the way, the little footnote that you see on the bottom, you're going to see those. Those are the sources. When I roll credits at the end, I have those fully listed out where you can find this data. But anytime you can name Aristotle and Isocrates, in your presentation, you're doing okay. So 5 classical types of research. First is timing, urgency. We got to get this done now. So we got a deadline. Second is mission. This is part of what we do in the world, like the great people here at Nagios hosting us. So credibility. I've led with credibility this entire presentation. I know what I'm talking about. You should listen to me. And then lastly, of the first 4, is emotion. What about the children? We have to help the children. This is these 4 are very important persuasive tactics. But they're weak without the last one, data. Used to have a boss that would say, trusting God, everybody else bring data. Data makes every single one of these persuasive arguments stronger. And I'm going to explain why. Number 1, you are not as special as you think you are. I understand you're a special flower. But you know, flowers fit into phylums and families and that sort of thing. So there's common themes about flowers. You guys all work for industries. So those make sense. And you know, most flowers, they ingest carbon dioxide and they kick out oxygen. So there's some common themes throughout. So you are not as special as you think you are. You can learn more by looking outside your organization. The second is you lack experience. I'm sure many of you have worked for 3, 4, 8 companies. I gotta tell you, the research has tens of thousands of companies and tens of thousands of people in your exact situation that have been surveyed, and they've given their information. So it's very good if you lack experience to have this. You can be better with data. A data-driven argument, when paired with any of those other 4 persuasive arguments, is just better. And here's why. You might be wrong. I can't tell you the number of times where I've just been dead wrong. And I went to the research to prove and confirm my priors, and I was wrong. And I was so happy, because before I stuck my neck out and used my credibility and my persuasion, I didn't do that because I was wrong. This is why it's important to pay attention to research. So, why should we research team resilience? Well, a couple reasons. One, and by the way, I have sources that, you can check in. This is in the research. Resilient teams, they're more productive. They require less managerial intervention, and they have lower turnover. This is a lot like running. If you're resilient as a runner, you're be out running more frequently. You require less physician intervention, and you can go longer. So you can stay out there running. You have less turnover in running. Any cybersecurity engineers out there? I know there's at least one wherever Steven is. There he is. Any cybersecurity engineers out there? Thank you. A lot of my research has been on cybersecurity, but a lot of this is true about developers. 44% report severe stress. 66, 2/3, say it's more stressful than anything else they've ever done. And 38% are thinking about leaving the profession. That's not cool. That's not great. So, and then lastly, employees under high stress, they often adopt maladaptive coping strategies. Let's unwind that. Maladaptive, bad adaptation, right? So if you're out running and you skin your knee and it hurts, all of a sudden maybe you kick out your foot so it hurts a little bit less, but now you're going to hurt something else. Likewise, you may find in order to push something through that you do something maladaptive, like being a bully, and you push something through because this is the way it's going to be. Well, that might work once or twice, but it doesn't help your entire team's resilience. So that's not good. So, cool? All right. So what leads to lack of resilience? This poor wolf. That looks like one burnt out wolf. So a couple things. First of all, there's research into individuals and there's research into teams. And I'm taking the top 4. This list is long, so if I don't name the thing that you know about, it's probably in this research or related ones. So individual, perfectionism. Perfect is the enemy of good. Who's heard that? Perfect is the enemy of good? All right, anyone a perfectionist out there? Yeah, there he is. There he is. Takes too much time to be perfect. It's well beyond the scope of what you need to do. Poor time management, poor work-life balance, and emotional exhaustion. This is going to make it harder for you to bounce back and do things well. Team. It's high workload. Either you took it on yourself because you're like, gosh darn it, we can do it, or your company gave you a reach goal. Inadequate recognition. No one's giving you attaboys. Unhealthy workplace conflict. There's some good workplace conflict, but it's bad, and I'll explain why in a little bit. What says something is bad and when it's good. And then lastly, insufficient resources. Any questions so far? All right, great. Now we're going to get into some solutions. So look at this. Isn't this wolf much happier? I mean, you got this wolf here. Oh, that's bad. Okay, now look at it. That is a resilient wolf surrounded by their pack. So that's a good thing. So 6 things, and I'm going to put them in running terms, and then I'm going to explain why that fits the research. All right. Number 1, buy the right shoes. Listen to your body. Get enough sleep. Practice how you play. Take time for recovery, and run the mile you're in. All right, first of all, run the right shoe. Buy the right shoe. I'm going to share this slide deck with you. You know what's not going to be in there? The name and contact information of my shoe fitter. Because my shoe fitter books over a month and out in advance. She's really good. We call her the shoe whisperer. And what she does when she looks searching your feet, she has to run so she sees your current stride, and then she looks at the soles of your feet. So anyone you go to, they should look at those 2 things. What that's analyzing is what kind of runner you are today and what kind of runner you are on other days. So it's both current and looking at data from the past. So that's a very important aspect. She also says you got to meet the body where you're at. I know I may want to buy the Nike Vaporfly Plus laser shoes, but if my body can't handle it, it's going to slow me down. It's going to get me injured. So you got to put your body where it's at. So pretty critical. Also, you need to get the right shoe. So these shoes are great. So these we fitted to several years ago. These are Launch 10s. They're great. I got specialized inserts in them. They worked really well for marathons up to 100 miles. Some crazy person in this room signed me up, or they didn't directly sign me up. They peer pressured me into signing up for a 314-mile race across Tennessee in the heat of July. Do you know what will happen to these shoes? They will melt. They will fall apart. They will not handle those hot roads in Tennessee. So you got to look forward when you're thinking about the shoes that you need, about what you're going to do in the future. So where does this apply to our research? Well, you need to pick the tools and techniques that fit your team. You got to meet your team where it's at. Number 1, you can leverage the correct apps and tools to monitor stress and wellness. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about how you fit these apps to your team. You meet the team where they're at. You simplify processes that you got to align with what your team can do. And you pick human-centered systems to enhance engagement. You know what they call a system that no one uses? It's not a system. It's completely useless. So it should be mothballed. Has to be used by people. And then the key is to pick the right tools and processes for your current and future needs. Think about your next 314-mile race or something crazy you need to do next year. So you use analysis to see what you've done in the past. You look at where you're at now and look at what you need to do in the future. And those are the tools and techniques that you choose. It's important to make strategic, policy, and systemic changes. What do I mean by systemic changes? Well, these are items that happen more than once. So, that skin knee example that I told you, well, turned out it happened a few times. And I had to stop and go, well, this is happening more often. It became a systemic problem. So I needed to do some balance exercises so I'd stop falling and skinning my knee all the time. So, and I want to pause here and talk about stress briefly. Stress is not all bad. Stress is good. Stress to the body increases strength. Stress to the team can make you stronger, provided it doesn't injure you. This is very critical. And how do you know if it injures you? You look at weak team performance. You look at your metrics. You find out that your team is not performing well when there's a stressor, and that's a bad stress. Cool? It's important to develop policies that address these systemic stressors. I'll give you a hint. One is excessive workloads. It always is. The other is role ambiguity. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing. So you think that somebody else is supposed to do it and you don't do it. Lastly, you need to embed this prevention into your organizational practices. And we're going to talk about training a little bit later on how we do that. Okay? Any questions before we leave? Buy the right shoes. All right, great. Next, gotta listen to your body. That's very important. So, and what does that mean? Well, one is workload management. It's important to use flexible prioritization methods. You need to stay fluid as situations evolve. So for instance, if I'm out running and I've got a cold, I've got to decide what's more important. Because ordinarily I got to hit my times and I got to hit the distance. Well, if I've got a cold, one of those is more important. You need to be dynamic on giving up that goal time just so you can hit the distance, or vice versa, depending on what you're doing. So you need to stay fluid as things evolve. You need to be proactive in workload assessment. I can't tell you how many times someone has told me that an unexpected event happens. And then we go back in the logs and guess what? It happens on a regular basis. And what do we call an unexpected event that happens on a regular basis? An expected event. This is something you can plan for. This is something you can be proactive about. So, and we should. So we need to be proactive workload assessment. You need to promote any project managers, scrum masters in the room. Oh, there we go. God, doing the Lord's work. God bless you. You get an extra cookie at the end, so for sure. You need to balance tasks based on this workload. And don't think that you can just do the same workload every single time. There's this concept in running called load, where you've loaded over time and you can't take it. So if you're out doing training cycle after training cycle after training cycle, you need to take a recovery stop. Same concept. You have that superstar developer. Some of you are that superstar developer. You know what you don't do when that superstar developer has saved your biscuit time after time after time? Ask them to do it again. So you need to balance things so they get a chance to rest. And we're going to talk about recovery here in a little bit. And then lastly, just minimizing stress. So is a pretty critical thing, and we're going to talk about a couple strategies of those here in a little bit. And then lastly, you need to mitigate increased workload through benefits. Hey Dave, what time on a 24-hour race do you put out the pizza? How many hours in?
About 5.
5 p.m.? Okay, so people have been running for about 9 hours at that point? Yeah, okay, great. Increased workload. You bring out the pizza once people have actually earned it. And I will tell you, in newspapers, when you gotta work all night elections, you get pizza. And the stupid ass sports people steal all the pizza. Not that I'm bitter, so not like they're working on the elections, but they are very good, the sports guys, at taking the pizzas. Cool, excellent. Cognitive load management. Who knows why you're exhausted after you go through a grocery store? Does anyone know? Well, every single thing you're on the shelf, you actually make a micro decision on whether to pay attention to it or not. It is a load on your, and if you go in meetings all day and you've got to decide whether to pay attention or not. So, look, Troy's paying attention right now. You had to make that decision. It's cognitive load. You need to manage it. And the way you do that is you align the complicated tasks, the ones that require high cognitive loads, with low stress periods. You know what? It can usually wait till tomorrow morning. That is a rule I found just across the board. I know it's urgent. I know you want to talk about it at 5 o'clock. I get it. And it can wait until tomorrow morning. The vast majority of things can wait until tomorrow morning. So, you need to look at your standard operating procedures, your SOPs. So and make some really critical decisions. Sometimes you need to add a few. People have role ambiguity. They need to know what to do. Sometimes you need to simplify simplify them by taking all the exceptions and throwing them in a different document and saying, if anything doesn't work, go into the exceptions document. And sometimes we get to delete workflows because they make no sense. They made sense 10 years ago. So this just reduces the amount of cognitive load to keep all of those SOPs top of mind. So, and you can address this decision fatigue that we talked about before by having more intuitive design. Less is more. So let's not overwhelm people with decisions. Let's map out the path they need to go through and the processes they do and make it intuitive. Optimize these processes to happy path. Have an exception so you can exit happy path. It's wrong, but if 90% of the time your process fits, simplify it. So optimize it. Optimize it down to what you need to do. Any questions on that? All right, great. Excellent. Lastly, you need to create a wonderful, collaborative, supportive culture. Not everyone can have a CCO, but we all should. We should have chief culture offices. But we can do a little bit of that ourselves. So one way to do that is you foster that collaborative environment through mentorship. So have someone that you can go to. So I've got some running mentors I go to when I have a question on something. That's really important. And then team building activities. We're going to talk about resilience training later. That's a heck of a good team building activity. Some of the resilience training that we're going to do later. So cool. Promote open communication. There's this concept called psychological safety, and it's a whole talk in and of itself, but it's all about making you feel better about the decisions you're going to make you feel comfortable about speaking truth to power, and feel comfortable basically being the person you are within the team and knowing your value. In this case, I'm going to pick out open communication because it's particularly important for resilience, because it helps you to address emotional exhaustion. Hey guys, I'm exhausted, I need a break. And build mutual support. Hey, I'm also exhausted. So here's something that you can try. So here's the thing, it has to be done in the right environment. It's important to read the room. So you're not always going to say, I'm emotionally exhausted in the heat of battle, in the fog of war. It's not always the right time to do it. But sometimes you just need to be courageous to lead. And then you'll find other people also. You need to be vulnerable a little bit. Cool. All right, great. Before we move on, no questions? All right, get enough sleep. This is a very important running concept. You make poor decisions when you don't have enough sleep. You fall down and you skin your knee a lot. Also, you just don't recover as quickly. You need to get enough sleep. This is tied to the very complicated, and I'll try to walk through this, very complicated doctoral topic of, no, really, just get enough sleep. There's been bodies of work about employees who lack sleep. One of the best ones I reference here reads The Sleepless Sentinel. And we all know this guy, right? Or gal. They stay up all night. They're with the servers. They're taking care of things. I remember I used to sleep in the server room because the old computers, they get really loud when a process was taking too long, and you get up and you cancel the process and you log the fact, and then you lay down again in the server room. I probably could have figured out a better way to automate that if I wasn't so damn tired. So it's very important to get enough sleep. Here's the thing, dig your well before you're thirsty. The very best time to work on your sleep is absolutely not when you're trying to go to sleep. This is an awful time to work on your sleep. You need to work on it throughout the day. This is a very important key concept. You think about, caffeinated versus decaffeinated. You monitor where your food is. So that's a very, what food am I ingesting? And do I sleep better or worse? We promote manageable shift schedules. Everyone has different schedules. Troy and I were talking about, I am an early bird, he is not. And it's important to be flexible because you want the very best out of your employees. Take breaks, schedule, and as needed, you trust yourself. And honestly, you can sometimes look at your peers and see how they're doing. There's also the concept of micro breaks, which I think we'll have time to talk about later. So it's a very good micro-recovery strategy. And then lastly, implement work-life integration strategies. to mitigate emotional exhaustion, and improve recovery. Cool. Number 4, practice how you play. How many of us have kids who have come home and said that term? You prepare through process and you simulate situations. You implement tailored training programs, and the key word here is tailored to your group, your team's specific stressors. You can hire for resilience because there are certain characteristics that have been analyzed in studies that say this employee is going to be more resilient than this other employee. So, like for instance, cognitive flexibility. They can think in different ways. Comfort with ambiguity. Willingness to ask for help. And a learning orientation. A number of you have been interviewed by me, and I always ask, how do you learn new things? You can't answer that question. Or if you're real vague, you don't learn on your own. So trust me, if you learn on your own, you go, well, okay, I read the documentation and I look up what's out on the internet about it, and maybe I'll watch a video about it. It's very important to be able to look at that. These are things that you can hire for. And when you're onboarding people, you can introduce the resilience training that we're talking about, right? So different strategies that are geared toward your team, so they walk in and they hit the ground running. Cool. And then lastly, we can enact job-specific intervention to help build skills to make that person more resilient and prepare the employees for psychological demands. All right, solution number 5, second to last one. Choose the time to recover from injuries. Here's the important thing to think about. Does anyone else have a Oura ring or something like that that measures sleep, etc.? Okay, cool. I love this thing for measuring sleep. It's very effective. It also measures resilience and tries to tell me what my activity goal is. It's complete rubbish. That part is completely, so when I'm on my calm, I haven't been training a lot and I'm relaxing, it tells me to go out and work harder. It gives me a higher activity goal. But likewise, if I'm in the heat of like a 90-mile training week, and it says, oh man, you're really stressed out, why don't you take tomorrow off? And I'm like, no, stupid little rip. The same thing in our jobs. So there are times when we might think, wow, this is the time when I need a break. No, you just suck it up and you get it done. You find the right time to recover from injuries. You don't do it in the middle of a race, you do it after the race is done. So, you address all issues, that's important, when the time is right. You always provide access to counseling, that's critical. You teach people mindfulness techniques and you introduce wellness technologies. Those are very important so people can use them as needed. But when you're in a meeting, you don't say, hey, Lucy, have you considered counseling? Have you considered some counseling? You seem really upset. That's not the appropriate time to do that. Lastly, you hold resilience training to address the stressors that are specific to your team and to promote well-being. These are things that help you increase resilience. But it's important, the timing is critical. All right, last one, run the mile you're in. It's important to recognize that a flexible workspace is not only looking forward, it's looking at what you're doing right now. And you're not too focused on what's off in the future. So you create flexible working arrangements, including remote work, adjustable hours, work-life boundaries, and understanding of individual situations. Because remember, if anyone hasn't seen this one before, come in guys, it's not so deep. Everyone's different. Everyone has different needs and different times. So we need those individual situations. Lastly, it's important to tie that to your organization's mission. Then go out and do the research, and then make your case, which leads into my final item, our key takeaways, which are all about making that case. Number 1, I want to leave you guys with a message of hope. Know that you can change. I have seen too many teams turn it around. I've also seen teams turn it around the other way and crash and burn. But I've seen so many teams turn it around and become more resilient. Teams do it all the time. Do a gap analysis. Figure out where you're weaker and where you have stressors and where you're less resilient. And then find out areas to improve. Use this slide deck and the sources that are in this slide deck. It'll give you lots and lots of ideas. Look into tools and processes grounded in research that can make you guys better. And most importantly, after you've figured out this really cool new idea that you want to do, talk to people who have been in the field for a while and see what happened the last time they tried that cool new idea. You can still try it, just make sure you do something different. Because those veterans in the organization will happily tell you when it failed before and what happened. So, prioritize your list of things to do based on return on investment. And your leaders will love you for this. Tie the R to things your organization cares about, the mission. So, well, it's not always about money. So I would say Nagios really cares about having people and supporting the community here. That's one of your R's. That's great. That's something that you can use when you're arguing and advocating for team resilience tools and training. Then make your case. Persuade. Use data, of course, but use a couple of those other classical styles as well. They really help. And then lastly, I can help. Seriously. I retired last February, and I'm kind of bored. So I'm done with this, doing some research. I'm almost done running states. All I have is this crazy, well, I got fans and a couple other races. But the key is I have time and I have so many documents. I would love to help you guys with team resilience. So, okay? So just contact me. I'm not about the money, guys. So, okay, my final thought. Hope is a strategy. Whoever said hope is not a strategy, I'm sorry, they're just wrong. Because you know what's not a strategy? A lack of hope. Yeah, you know, guys, we should do this, but, you know, it's not going to work anyway. That is not strategy. I remember leading a team through the bankruptcy of the Star Tribune, and I had to tell you, newspapers are not doing that great at that time anyway. It's not like we were giving them a lot of money to start with us, and then we weren't giving them pay raises. Well, you had to implement hope, but here's the key. Hope does not equal gaslighting. This is not about telling people falseness, that something is going to happen, and then it never happens. It's really about how you think and about how you communicate. Don't be a Donnie Downer. Be honest and transparent while giving people some hope that things will get better, and some examples of things that you're trying to make things get better. Teams can get better, except in cases of illegal or unethical behavior. You know, let's put that disclaimer in there, but teams can always get better. Hey, just the fact that you guys are here, I assume you're not just here to get the cookies, but maybe you are, is a great sign of hope. Cool, excellent. Any questions before I roll credits? Yes, Michael.
You're talking about getting the appropriate rest and sleep. I've heard that, like, top-tier mathematicians and analysts and people at the top of their skill set, big difference between them is them and, like, just a little bit under is people can time, take those breaks in between really intense sessions.
Yeah.
Where you got any research on that?
Absolutely. There is some great research on micro-recoveries, which I'll share when I share the slide deck, because we didn't have time to get into that today. But it's all about those little moments of mindfulness. Sometimes it's just about taking yourself out of the world for a second, in whatever way is the best. Breathing is classic. Doing breathing exercises, etc. I'll admit, I often do it. Hey, just even counting to 10 and really focusing on counting to 10. But frankly, you could focus on your left fingernail. Just really focus on your left fingernail for 12 seconds. You get the same result. So it's a little micro-recovery strategies, and there's a bunch of good research on that. You've read that, and it is absolutely correct. Great feedback, as always, Mr. Duran. Cool. Yes?
Is the wolf art AI?
Yeah, totally. This is what you get with an Adobe Firefly subscription. It has no limits. We had fun, though I will admit, I'm a little shy about saying this. My ChatGPT knows me pretty well. I've set up a chief of staff, essentially, that I talk to on a regular basis, and helps me prioritize my day. Knows me pretty well. I said, what am I most like? And he mentioned wolf for a bunch of reasons, which I'm too embarrassed to mention. So, but that's how I chose the wolf. But then after that, it was just all, it was a lot of fun with Adobe Firefly. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, you're going to say that you're most like a wolf and then not tell us what those strengths were?
Oh my Lord. Okay, so I work best in teams, right? I'm all about the pack. I could care less about myself. So I really care about the pack. I do care about establishing dominance when it's necessary. I will stand up and lead a room if it's not being led. So that's some of the reasons why a wolf kind of fits me. So I'm not the lone wolf McQuaid type. I'm definitely more, I work best within a team. It's one of the reasons why I set up an agentic AI to be my chief of staff, just so I could have someone to chat with. So good question. Good point. Anything else? All right, great. Well, I'm going to roll credits. 3 pages of sources. We will put this up on the Slack. If you're not on the .NET user group Slack, you should be on the .NET user group Slack. If not, message me in Meetup, and I'll send this over to you. Maybe we can send an email out in Meetup to the attendees. That might work too. But we'll send this out later. A lot of links, there's some of these that have DOIs in here, so you can link to them directly. A bunch of the others you can just find on the internet and find the sources. So these are all very good. Excellent. And there was the questions. Any final questions? If not, hey, thank you guys very much. Appreciate you. So give yourself a round of applause.